Not, no worries.
Okay, I think we are live now. Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واحفظ أعداهم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all the viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we start the session, this session is actually a collaboration between Africa Youth Network and the Africa Federation of TAB Subcommittee Social Voices. So today we have a special guest with us. Before I introduce the beautiful soul, I'm sure all of you know him. He has so many posts on Instagram and Facebook, so many inspiration posts. He has the Sheikh comics, he has the Revival of the Heart. I'm sure all of you know him. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Jawad.
Wa alaikum salam, dear brother. So nice to be with you and also with the lovely viewers. It's a pleasure for me.
Yes, Sheikh Jawad. Thank you so much for coming to the show today. So, today everyone's wondering about the topic. I'm sure everyone, when they saw the topic about addiction, they must be wondering, this is a topic that not many people talk about. Not many scholars actually go on the pulpit or actually have sessions about this. And this is it's a good topic because I think it's not many people are open about it or they're ashamed to talk
Yeah,
about it. So, I'll leave it to you now. I'll give it to you, inshallah.
sure. Yes, as you said, I think a lot of us, we feel a little bit difficult to talk about this topic, or even perhaps to not just talk about it to others, but even in a family, people find it difficult to open up issues. I receive a lot of messages from a lot of people who, after months and months of lectures and posts that I put out there, that don't feel ashamed to
Sorry, I'm not sure if it's Sheikh's network. Sheikh. So while Sheikh is connecting, I just want to ask all the viewers, please send in your questions about the topic. Inshallah, we're just trying to see if what's happening with Sheikh. I think Sheikh is back. Sheikh, sorry, Sheikh Johan.
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was my Wi-Fi. I really apologize to everyone.
No
If it
problem.
happens again, then I'll go to data. I don't know why Wi-Fi's been a little bit naughty today, but it's
No
okay.
problem.
It's a live program. These things happen.
Yeah.
So so I was saying it's a difficult topic. Even people who find it difficult to talk to their family members about it. As I was saying, it took a lot of posts to tell people don't be ashamed, reach out for help. Finally, slowly, have people have been opening up, messaging us, saying yes, we've got this issue, etc. And I think this is really great because the first step towards recovery, towards healing, towards improving, is to acknowledge that there is an issue and to reach out to get help. Because a lot of the time, um, these are issues that we may not be able to overcome on our own. We may need help. So I think it's a very important topic. I'm glad we're talking about it tonight. It deserves a lot of attention, and also I think it's a topic that goes very well with the month of Ramadan that is just about to happen. Inshallah. Yeah. So I think because the month of Ramadan is actually, a great opportunity for growth, for improving ourselves. And so why not? Why not spend this month on working on some of the, for example, unhealthy patterns, behavior patterns that we have? I just want to mention a quick overview of when I say addiction, what do I mean? Because people may have a limited understanding of addiction that may include only addiction to substances or, for example, certain drinks. But addiction, when we say addiction, we're talking about a wider range of things. So I'll I want to speak about first, why do addictions happen, then how many types of addictions there are, and then how to get rid of them. So a lot of us, when we were younger in our life, we've gone through difficulties. There has been moments in our life where there's been, stress in the family, strong emotions, fear, uncertainty, etc. And when we are younger, it's much harder to deal with these things. A younger brain, a child brain, or even when we are an adolescent, it's much more vulnerable, and so sometimes when life became too difficult, or when there was a strong emotion, or there was pain, a lot of us, in order not to feel that pain, what we did was we tried to distract ourselves from it, right? This is the root cause of addiction. And once you explain how many types of addictions there are, this becomes more clear, right? And this is something that, there was a moment of pain, something bad was happening at home, someone had hurt us, things which are really bad and painful. We didn't know how to handle the pain. It was too much. We were scared of the feeling. We're scared of all of that. So we tried to do something to distract ourselves from the pain, right? And then what happens is that slowly, this thing that we resorted to, because it becomes a refuge from that uncomfortable feeling, we keep becoming dependent on it. We keep needing it more and more. And that can lead into an, and by the time it has become an addiction, it means that it's a compulsion. We can no longer stop it. The urge to do it becomes stronger than our willpower to stop it.
Correct.
Now, what are the different types of things that we all do, or at least most people do, in order not to feel pain, not to feel grief, not to feel something uncomfortable? There are three types. One are certain behaviors, right? So some of us resorted to, and by the way, all of these come under this whole topic of addiction. So some people, in order not to feel the pain, we adopted certain behaviors like anger, like jealousy, like blaming. Now, someone may say, okay, how can blaming or anger help us escape from a pain? Well, the answer is quite clear. Imagine if there's something wrong in life, right? You don't want to feel that. You can start blaming someone else, right? Or get angry. And then the anger will be a distraction enough from the problem that you don't want to deal with, right? So a lot of the times when we're actually blaming someone, it could be very well the case that there's something we don't want to admit, right? A lot of people, when they make a mistake themselves, it's too difficult to accept it, so they blame someone else. Even parents sometimes do that. The parents have made a mistake. It's too difficult to admit that, because then you have to like sit with that feeling of, ooh, I made a mistake. I'm not perfect. There's something wrong with me. In order to avoid this, immediately, oh, it's the children's fault, or it's this person's fault, right? So blame could be a behavior that we can get used to in order to avoid a difficult feeling. And these are not always negative, by the way. Sometimes these behaviors that we adopt could seem a positive thing. Like, there may be a person who's super nice, right? And someone looks at him like, wow, he's pleasing everyone, such a nice person. This is amazing. What we may not know is that underneath this, there may be an addiction. How so? See, there, and especially this would happen to a lot of children who are in families who they feel like the love of the parents are not very guaranteed, right? So they feel like if I make a mistake, they may not love me, or they may hurt me, etc. So what this child may end up doing is that, okay, I cannot live without love. I need to be loved. Right? So, but then they may not love me if I make a mistake, or if I say my own opinion. So let me be so kind to them, to everyone around me, that they wouldn't let go of me, right? That they would keep loving me. So you can see that sometimes even loving others could be a form of just trying to avoid a pain or a fear, right? The person may be scared of being rejected, scared of being let go, scared of people leaving him or her alone. So it's like, I'm going to be so nice to you that you can't leave me. And obviously this down the road could be unhealthy, because the person always like even knows something as simple as which restaurant should we go to. Oh, whatever restaurant you guys say, right? Which movie should we watch? Whatever movie you say, right? So this person may slowly lose their personality. They may not even know what do they like, because they've always went with what other people like, just so that they stay, right? So again, this is another form of, in order to avoid a fear, like fear of being left alone, or fear of, we resort to a behavior. In this case would be just loving everyone. So this was the first category. These were certain, characteristics, like getting angry, blaming, loving everyone. The second things we could get attached to in order to avoid pain are people, right? And you can see this in a lot of relationships in which the two partners, or at least one of them, becomes so dependent on the other one, in a sense that they give the responsibility of their well-being to the other person, right? They're like, you are responsible to take care of me, right? And as soon as the other person becomes a little bit less present in the relationship, or the relationship becomes a little bit colder, this person feels like they can't take it, they can't deal with life, right? Because what they had done initially was that anytime they had a problem, let's say a fear or loneliness or an insecurity, because they didn't know how to deal with it, they went to a person to feel better, to distract themselves from pain. Now, initially that could be a parent, later on it could be friends, or at some cases it could be even our partner in marriage, right? So our wife or husband. Anytime we have an issue, instead of dealing with it, we distract ourselves. So this is why a lot of relationships happen in which the partners are not both independent people trying to make a life. No, they're fully dependent. Without the other one, they cannot live in an unhealthy way. And the person has not taken responsibility for their own well-being. And of course, in none of these cases, we are judging them. No, these are things, these are behavioral patterns or things that we did without knowing. It's like in order to protect ourselves, we resorted to these things. So there's really no blame, no judgment. We're just trying to see how we have created these patterns so that we can undo them. And then the third thing that we may use in order to avoid feeling a pain or avoid feeling something difficult are things, objects, like drugs, for example, right? It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be eating even, right? I'm not saying eating is always an addiction, but if in order to avoid an emotion, in order to avoid pain, we end up eating, that overeating then becomes a stress eating, an addiction, right? So and we can see this ourselves, right? As soon as we get a bad news, we feel like, okay, I need to go to the kitchen, right? It's like we're medicating ourselves with donuts, for example. So it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be food, it could even be things which from the outside seem healthy, like even reading, right? Some people may be compulsive readers, or work. A lot of people are just working to distract themselves from something which is going on, right? And you can see that because it seems like there's no balance to the way they're working. Like they work, and to the extent
I'm sorry, I think Sheikh's internet is not too good. He might have to shift to his bundles. Just a reminder, as Sheikh sorts his internet, please sending your questions.
I changed to data.
Sorry, Sheikh. I think we didn't hear you for the past 1 minute.
Yeah. I realized, because for me it showed this circle, which means that Sheikh, you're done. So Yeah, so basically that was the gist of how addictions are formed, and how Wi-Fi's are not very reliable. So so should I continue with the discussion?
Yes, please.
Sure. Okay. So up to now, I've been talking about why is it that we become addicted, right? We said, okay, there is an uncomfortable feeling, fear, pain, grief, etc. We don't want to feel it. We distract ourselves from it. Now, we either distract ourselves through blaming others, getting angry, withdraw, or trying to love everyone so they don't leave us, or we distract ourselves from a pain by attaching onto a person, right, that we cannot live without, or we may avoid a pain or an uncomfortable feeling by resorting to like an object, for example, a drug, food, or an activity like exercise or social media, right? A lot of us, as soon as a stressful time comes, immediately, right? Which means that we can't even sit with an uncomfortable feeling for more than a few minutes. As soon as we feel a little bit scared or uncomfortable, we can't deal with it, so we have to do something, right? So and the thing we do, slowly we become so dependent on it, and an addiction is formed. Now um, and if we look at our own life, we'll see that a lot of us, in one way or the other, have resorted to things to distract us. It could be like anytime we feel lonely, anytime we feel low, we watch a movie, or we go on social media, or it could be eating, or it could actually be, for example, certain going to a certain website, doing certain indecent things, etc., etc. So there are so many different ways in which any of us could be dealing with this. Now, just knowing why this happens, it's very important, because if we don't know that in the first place addictions were formed in order to protect us from a pain or something, we don't know how to eradicate them from their root, right? So often what happens is that when people want to get rid of an addiction, let's say they're addicted to certain websites, they need to go on those websites, or for example, they're addicted to eating or whatever. They think that I need to just make a decision and through willpower push myself out of this, right? So that's why you see a lot of people keep making resolutions, like the nights of God comes, they promise to God, from tomorrow I'm not going to do this thing anymore, I promise. And they really mean it, they're very sincere, they're very honest about it. But then they're good maybe for a few weeks, they relapse. They make another decision, they try, they relapse, right? Because they're not paying attention to the root of the problem. They just see the symptom, which is that action. And they think that just by willpower, you can end an addiction. But addiction is a little bit trickier than that, right? So that's why we have a lot of people who want to stop their addictions, who want to quit, and have tried so many times, but they failed so many times, and now they're just disappointed. They feel like, oh, it's impossible, or maybe I'm a bad person, maybe there's something wrong with me, and then a lot of shame is added to it. And the problem is that if I have, for example, tried to quit my addiction a few times and I failed and I feel ashamed of that, then that shame again becomes an uncomfortable feeling that I cannot tolerate. So I want to distract myself from the shame. So I go back to the addiction even stronger, right? So if I feel shame about my addiction, that just means that the addiction is going to be stronger, because shame is something that addiction feeds on. So, so now that we know this is what's happening, we also can realize what is the way out, right? So the way out is to, if we want to get rid of an addiction, instead of seeing that, oh, this is a terrible thing I want to get rid of, we need to ask ourselves a different question. What was the role of this addiction in my life? What need did I have that I was trying to satisfy through this? Or what kind of emotional, like, pain or uncomfortable feeling was I trying to avoid using this, right? So this becomes a very interesting question that we can ask ourselves, and this will take us to the root of the addiction. Let me just give an example too. Let's say a person is dealing with, for example, any addiction. Let's say eating. Now they can ask themselves, instead of feeling shamed, oh, I'm a terrible person, I have no self-control, etc., which is going to make them feel worse, ask themselves, okay, why did this happen? And so they can, for example, keep a journal, right? So from that day onwards, every time they feel that urge to suddenly go and eat when it's not the time to eat normally, they can say, what happened that gave me this urge, right?
Yes.
And slowly they can, through journal, learn their own triggers. Oh, you know what? I got stressed. For example, my boss called, gave me a bad news, or the landlord called and said, you know what, we're going to increase your rent. I couldn't deal with that, right? So I went towards eating. So slowly they will learn what is it that they're trying to avoid. And once we start working on that, then obviously we have eradicated the problem from its root. It will take time, but once you fix it from the root, then it's gone for good. So I don't want. Should I talk more? Should we go for questions? I'm totally open.
So what I can do is there are many questions coming in actually.
Okay.
So one of the questions is that what is the correct way of managing pain and anxiety if you don't depend on people and objects?
Very good. Very good. So, see, when it comes to anxiety, I think it's very important for us to know why it's happening, right? Anxiety is a little bit different to addictions, right? The reason why anxiety happens is that anxiety is basically the threat system of the body activating, right? So initially, let's look at a situation that we can understand. Imagine you're in a jungle and a bear is attacking you, or a lion, right? Imagine a lion is attacking you. Now, your body, your brain has a built-in system. It detects danger, right? And then puts you in fight or flight, right? So it means either stay and fight the lion, or just escape, right? So fight or flight. And it makes a lot of sense because you don't want to get eaten by a lion, right? So the body brings all of its energy to try and give you the resources so that he can escape from this lion. And this is why when this threat system is activated, the body will tell itself, okay, we need to run away. Right now, for example, we don't need to digest food. So when the threat system is activated, even our digestive system stops, our heart beats faster. So the body says, I'm going to use all of my resources to escape, right? Now, the problem is that in a modern world, this threat system could be activated in places in which our life is not really in danger, right? So maybe I'm in a shopping mall and let's say I'm a teenager. I'm in a shopping mall, I see another few teenagers and I feel a little bit insecure about myself, right? Ooh, maybe they're talking about my body. Maybe they're saying something about like my outfit, right? I feel a little bit judged and my threat system gets activated. Now, it doesn't understand that we're not being chased by a lion. It gives us the same exact feeling. So your heartbeat goes faster. You may be hyperventilating. You may, your breathing changes. You'll get all of these scary thoughts, right? Because the threat system has been activated, right? Your body thinks that your life is in danger. So it's doing all of this to protect you. It thinks that you're escaping from a lion. So you get all of these thoughts. Ooh, what if something terrible happens? What if they judge me, right? These other teenagers. And then from there, it goes to all sorts of crazy places. Oh, what if no one loves me? What if I never find a partner? What if no one marries me? Oh, I'm going to be alone. What if I stay with my parents for the rest of my life? Oh, what if they die? Who's going to take care of me, right? So the brain can go all of those places. Now, again, what happens here, if we don't know what's happening to us, why is it that out of a sudden in a shopping mall, my heart's doing this, my breathing has changed, I'm getting these thoughts, we may get so scared of what's happening to us because we don't know what anxiety is, right? Now, we get so scared of what's happening in our body, we try to escape from it. So what do? We're like, okay, let me not think about it, or let me through thinking convince myself, right? No, I will find a partner. You know what? I'll do this. I'll get a good job, then I'll find a partner, right? So we try to fight it, or we try to escape it. Like, we quickly say, okay, done shopping, I'm going home. Now, if we try to fight it with our thoughts or escape from the situation and go home, what we are actually doing is telling our brain that, you know what, you activated the threat system. It was actually a threat, right? Because the brain is like, if it wasn't a threat, why is he escaping the shopping mall? Why is he trying to fight the thought? So it must be a threat. So next time in the shopping mall, it activates it even more. So it may get to a place that we're even scared of going to the shopping mall. What is the way out? We have to know why we're suddenly getting this feeling. Because if we don't know, it's just that we're there suddenly, poof, like, what is this happening to me? A feeling of doom, getting scared, But once we know that this is the way, then we need to find a way to communicate to our brain that, mate, I'm fine. You don't need to activate the threat system. I'm in a shopping mall. We're safe, right? Or I'm at home watching a movie. I'm safe. But the thing is that we cannot talk to that part of the brain through words. You can't tell it, oh, it's okay, don't worry, because it doesn't understand words. So through our action, we have to tell it that it's fine. And how do you do that? By acting as if the anxiety is not there. I know we're scared. I know we'll get all of these scary thoughts. But if we act as if the anxiety is not there, slowly, our brain will learn that, okay, this wasn't a threat. So maybe after a few times, a few weeks, it wouldn't activate the threat system.
Okay, but in a way, Sheikh, doesn't that still lead to addiction? Because through anxiety, all the negative thoughts, they still lead to, because they look for a resort, isn't it? They look for safety. So they still go back to addiction, isn't it?
Yeah. So in order to escape from anxiety, we may resort to an addiction. That's true. In order to not feel it. Very true. But as we know, with anxiety, the more you escape it, the stronger it becomes. So with anxiety, it's even more important to stay and fix it. And of course, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't get help from people. When I said we become attached to people, I didn't mean that we can't get help. We can get help from people. We should just know that at the end of the day, we need to take care of ourselves with the help of other people. Fine. But it's at the end of the day, we need to find that inner place to make ourselves feel better. There's nothing wrong with getting help with people as long as we don't get attached on them. And now I know that at some point in our life, it may be so difficult, especially when we're younger. So maybe initially it's even fine to get attached to our parents, etc., till we get to a place where we're a little bit stronger, and then we can fight this off, right? And then the reason why people get attached to each other or to certain things is that at that point, they couldn't, like, that's the best they could do. They couldn't fight it on their own. So they were like, okay, let me resort to something else or someone else, right? So it's okay. We shouldn't feel bad for doing that. But as soon as we feel like now I can take care of myself and I can, then it's good to slowly become independent.
Okay. And then maybe we can move further. So now, okay, one person now knows he has an addiction, or he has already identified that he has addiction. So what can one do to heal from the addictions they have?
Yeah. So of course, with each addiction, it's a little bit different. There are certain methods for example, substances, eating. These are all a little bit different. So it really depends on what they're addicted to. But there are certain parts of it which are the same for everyone. And slowly, maybe we can even link this to our relationship with God, because I think that's very important. So The first step, as I said, as soon as you admit it, right, you realize that, okay, I have this addiction. I'm sorry. I have this addiction. I'm not happy about it because it's affecting my life, right? I want to overcome it. I want to take control of my life back, right? As soon as you feel this way, you should no longer feel bad about yourself. You should no longer feel shame, right? Now, I know this is very difficult for religious people because we have so much guilt inside. Like we're like, oh, I'm a bad person. Oh, God must hate me. All of this, which is very bad because, as I said, shame just makes addiction stronger. As soon as you have admitted to yourself that there is a problem, I want to fix it, even if you haven't fixed it yet, but only by admitting it, you've taken the most important step. God is happy with you. So put shame out of the way. Now, this step on its own may take a long time because we are just so used to attacking ourselves. Oh, Javod, look at you, the way you're eating. You're a terrible person. You don't have no self-control, right? We keep giving this to ourselves. Or, for example, if I have social anxiety, Javod, everyone does small talk easily. Why can't you do why can't you? We're just so used to attacking ourselves. But if we want to overcome an addiction, we need to learn to not do this, right? And certain things help us. One of them is to know that we're not the only one who's stuck with an addiction. Other people may not tell us, but there are a lot of people who are in the similar situation, right? Much more than you think, right? A lot of people tell me, like, message me and say, Sheikh, I feel terrible about myself. I'm the only one. I can't believe I'm a Muslim and I'm doing this. And I'm like, believe me, just before you, 100 other people message me. They're in the same situation, right? We're all dealing with problems one way or the other. And after all, we're humans, we make mistakes. As soon as we want to overcome it, we've made a great step. And in fact, in Munajat Sha'baniyah, Imam Ali has a very beautiful line. Imam Ali says, God, وَجَعَلْتُ الْإِقْرَارَ بِالذَّنْبِ إِلَيْكَ وَسِيلَتِي. Imam Ali says, see, when you admit your shortcomings, from that point onwards, even God is happy with you. Right? All you need to do is just admit, oh, I have this shortcoming, and you go towards God to get help. Right? And he says, once you admit, not only your shortcoming won't keep you from God, doesn't mean you're a bad person. No, in fact, it's a way to go towards God. Right? Because you've tried so much to heal on your own, you couldn't. Now you go towards God to help you. So Imam Ali says, admitting our mistakes actually gets us close to God. So don't feel shame. Right? And we're having so many other du'as, so many hadiths that God is there waiting for us to go to him so that he can help us heal. Right? If we have shortcomings, God doesn't stop loving us, no matter what we are addicted to. Even if we're addicted to the worst thing, as soon as we want to heal, as soon as we want to fix our life, God is there with open arms, ready to help us heal. This is literally the lines of our du'as. For example, in Dua Arafah, Imam Hussein says, وَوَسِعَ الْمُسْتَغِيلِينَ رَأْفَةً وَرَحْمَةً وَحِلْمًا. Imam Hussein says, see, if you have a shortcoming, you have an addiction, God will come and embrace you with kindness, softness, and patience. So God wouldn't even rush you to heal. He says, no, take your time. I'm here to help you, right? So we're like, all right, slowly, we need to have, you need to learn to have compassion for ourselves, right? If I'm addicted to eating, if I'm addicted to other people, I need to slowly learn to have compassion myself, not to attack myself, and know that this may have happened at an age where I really didn't have any other way. Many of people who start their addictions, it's when they are very young, and they didn't know how other way to protect themselves. Life was difficult, something had happened, they didn't know how to deal with it, so they resorted to this, right? So that's one thing. Then the second thing that we need to do is, as I said, find the root of the problem. Okay, I don't have shame. I'm going to be nice to myself. I'm going to go towards God. I'm not ashamed of God because Imam Ali has told me, God is going to be loving towards me. As soon as I admit my shortcoming, I'm going to go towards love, be open, tell God, God, I have this issue, I want to overcome it. And then you look for the root of it. What was it that I was trying to avoid? This is very important. What is it that when do I get these triggers or these urges? And you can keep a journal, right? That's why, for example, in certain techniques like in CBT, if someone wants to quit an addiction, they say don't start from today, start from a week. Why? So that in that week you get the time to watch the urges. What happens that you go, oh, maybe it's when I get scared, maybe when there's no one at home. As soon as others leave the home, the urges start, right? So they give you, for example, a week time to write down the urges. You're like, okay, what is it that you want to stop? What is it that you want to avoid? And then you can slowly work on that.
Okay, I'll give you another. I'm getting so many questions actually.
Sure.
So someone asked that once you identify that someone has an addiction or someone is suffering from addiction, how can so
Yeah.
we've already identified how we can help ourselves through healing. We have to just identify the way you said is have a journal, write and identify them, from there you work on it. But what
Yeah.
if you actually identify someone else has an addiction and you can monitor through their behaviors? How can you help them from the addiction that they're suffering from?
Very good. So we have to know that there are a few things we can do. See, first thing is that we should try and make sure we're really not judgmental, right? Because as I
Okay.
said, judgment, shame, speaking down to someone will only reinforce it, right? So it's very important, even if you want to help someone, that you do it in a compassionate way. It's very important, right? This is the way our imams did it, right? They wouldn't go and make fun of someone or look down on someone. In fact, we have so many ahadith, for example, from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, that if someone has a shortcoming and you look down at them for that shortcoming, chances are you're going to get the same or something worse. Or we have another hadith from one of the imams that says, if you judge someone for a shortcoming they have, now God may forgive their shortcoming, but you, for your arrogance, God may not forgive you, right? So the first step is to know that okay, this person is dealing with something. It's not easy to get rid of. Addictions are not easy to quit if a person doesn't know how to, and most people don't know, right? So we leave the judgment aside. Then if we really want to help them, we need to get close to them. I cannot help someone that I'm far away from. You get close to them, and then you can either, for example, give them the support to heal that root cause, or give them resources that can help them, right? Because one of the very important things is resources, books that can help, right? We can talk about books as well. There's a great book, for example, called Recovery, which goes through the different steps a person can take towards healing their addiction. There are great books on healing, which again can help. There are videos. I have one full video on how to deal with addiction. So then you can maybe provide them with resources. And also another thing is that if you're close and you can talk to them, perhaps you can, what we've been discussing, slowly, very naturally, not just like, going to out of nowhere. By the way, no, very naturally, if it comes in a conversation, can slowly pass this information on to them, right? Because a lot of people really don't know what addiction is, why it was formed. So these are perhaps certain things we can do to help others.
There's another interesting question that just came in. So the person
Yes.
says that often after the person has dropped the addictive behavior, the person may feel lost as they have no other coping mechanisms, or may feel the addiction was part of the identity. So the person is asking, how can you address this?
Yes, definitely. That's very true. Because if addiction becomes so serious, like imagine, for example, someone could even be addicted to their job, right? There are so many workaholic people. Now, that job could become a very important part of their identity. That's very true. So that's why I think one of the practices that we can have, I think it's a very important practice, is to be okay with feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Because if you remember, even in the first place, this is what led to addiction. Pain came, or what else? Like fear came, we couldn't deal with it, we resorted to something. Now, once we want to get rid of addiction, once we start working on those things, another uncomfortable feeling may come. Okay, then who am I? What am I doing with my life? Right? Now we have to know that again, this is an uncomfortable feeling, right? We can sit with it. Now, if we learn that this is not something to be scared of, this is something good, this is a feeling we're getting because we are starting to rebuild ourselves, rebuild our life. There's nothing wrong with that. This means that you're going to the next level of your growth, right? So if I'm not scared of this stage in which I feel lost, because see, most of the times what's happening is not bad. How we react to it, it's bad. What's happening to me? I don't know myself anymore, right? So if I look at it this way, what's happening to me? I'm lost. I don't know myself anymore. I'm going to get scared of it. But I can look at it another way. Oh, see, this is a new stage. I get to reinvent myself. I get this opportunity to build a new Javad. You know, this is my, it's like I'm becoming a different person. Right? If I look at it this way, if I sit with it, it may be difficult for a few days or even a few weeks, but then I will get the opportunity to create a much healthier identity for myself. And yeah.
Okay. So maybe the most important thing is now, how can we review the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us with our healing? There was a beautiful thing I actually saw on your post where you said about the verse, Surah number 41, Fusilat. I think it's verse number 44, where Allah says, use healing. The Quran is used as a healing for people. But the way you say that, many people right now is that they feel like, okay, I'm just going to read the Quran and I'm going to heal. But the way you said, it's like walking in a pharmacy. You just can't go in a pharmacy, just pick all the medicines you get, and then be like, no, this is gonna help me. So how do you know how to use the Quran, how to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How can you, what's your advice on this?
Definitely. See, I think the most important thing we need to do in our relationship with God is change our understanding of who God is. This is very important. See, a lot of us, we were told that by our parents, by our religious teachers, I don't know, somewhere, if you make one mistake, God's going to hate you. If you make one mistake, God's going to punish you, right? Do your salah or God will angry. Do your salah or you'll go to hell. These are the things they told us about God. So it may be very difficult for us to even think, like it may never come to our mind that God is someone that you can go to help for, or someone that understands your problem. A lot of people actually feel scared. Ooh, look, I've got this addiction. God's going to hate me. Ooh, I'm going to go to hell. All of that things, right? So the first thing is to fix this. We need to change our understanding of God. One of the examples I give is actually what happened between me and my father when I was a teenager. So I remember when I was around 15, 16, I made a terrible mistake. I messed up in a certain way. I'm not going to say how, but I made a very terrible mistake. And I was very, very embarrassed for my father to find out. So what I tried to do, because I thought if dad finds out, he's going to come on top of all of this, he's going to get mad at me, he's going to judge me, the whole package. So for a few months I tried to hide it from him. And you can imagine how much stress that created on me. Like every night I was sleeping, I was like, oh, what if he finds out? Lies after lies to try and hide it from him. And then after a few months, he found out. And to my surprise, he sat me down. He's like, Jawad, you've messed up. Like, I know. But he said, you know what? I'm here to help you. Let's see what can we do to fix this. I was like, what? You're not going to shout? You're not going to get angry? You're actually going to help me solve it? He said, yes, you're my son. You've messed up. Now we need to fix it, right? And he came, and through his help, very quickly, because a lot of the times the problems we're scared of, the fear makes them even scarier. But once my dad came with a few serious, sober decisions, he fixed the issue. He spoke to the people who were involved, fixed the issue, and told me, Jawad, I've got your back. But next time, don't do this to yourself. You see how difficult it was, right? And next time you make a mistake, you come right to me. I said, of course I will come. Now this, so initially I thought Dad's going to judge me, he's going to get angry. So it never occurred to me to go to him for help. But when actually he found out, he was there ready to help solve the problem. With God is the same. If I feel like, oh, God's going to judge me for my shortcomings, God's going to hate me, all of that, it will never even occur to me to go to God for help. But the Imams in the du'as explain that God is not like that. We have so many ahadith, right? For example, there's that beautiful hadith al-Qudsi. If people who have turned away from me, God is saying, knew how much I'm yearning for them, how much I'm waiting for them to come to me, they would have got so happy they couldn't contain themselves, right? Or we have so many things like that. Imam Sadiq says, Asan, adatuhu al-ihsan ila al-musi'un, about God. That God's custom, God's principle, God's way of behavior is to be nice to people who've made mistake. Imam Ali says that. Imam Hussein says that. Once we look at God like this, then we feel actually safe to go towards God and ask for help. Open up, God, I've messed up. And imagine the burden that would be lifted off our shoulders. Because when you have a shortcoming and you feel like everyone's going to judge you, you carry it on your own, like me in those few months that I didn't want my dad to find out. But as soon as you admit to someone, it's like, finally, someone knows. I told someone, right? And as soon as I told my dad, I felt so much better. In the same way, as soon as you know God is a safe place where you can go, admit your shortcomings, you feel so much better. And then you can even pray for God to give you the courage and the strength to overcome it, right? Because at the end of the day, God is the healer. Even right now, one of the interesting things is that even for non-religious people, one of the best methods they have come up with to, for example, quit alcohol addiction is the, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the 12 steps of getting rid of alcohol addiction. The interesting thing is this: even when a non-religious person goes to that system, in one of the steps is this. So first you admit, I've messed up, I've got an issue. Then you admit, on my own, I couldn't fix it. I tried so many things. The third step is, I need a higher power to help me, right? Even non-religious people, as part of their recovery, they have to admit they need the help of something bigger than themselves, right? So why should we, as Muslim people, be scared of our God? So if we know that God is like a loving parent, waiting for us to go to him so that he comes and helps us, then we can open up, we wouldn't get defensive, we wouldn't get anxious, and that would help us so much, right? And then perhaps in this month of Ramadan that we are approaching, it's so good to maybe change this once and for all. Look at God in this way. If it's okay, I'll mention a few lines from Munajat Sha'baniyah. Imam Ali has incredible lines. For example, he says, God, if I am in a place where right now I don't deserve your mercy, but you are so generous that you're going to give mercy to me anyway, right? So no matter what we've done, Imam Ali says, don't worry, God is more loving. Or another line in Munajat Sha'bani, Ilahi afwuka afdalu min amali. I may have the biggest shortcoming, I may have the biggest sin, but God's forgiveness, God's healing power is much bigger. Right? Once I look at God this way, I feel so much safer to go to him and open up, and then know that Imam Ali again says in Munajat Sha'baniyah, perfect. As soon as you opened up, you're with God. God loves you. Don't worry about it, and then start your healing journey.
True, but I still feel that people don't still get that connection. We're always, or many people, since they've grown up, they've always felt that Allah's always so strict. He's gonna punish you, and we don't have that, or that feeling that tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually very merciful, who's very kind. And I think we need that system where we need to reflect on, especially the dua, is that the Imams actually telling us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he's so merciful. But there's another issue in this, is that many people take advantage of this, where they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very merciful, he's so kind. So even if I'm going to open up to him, I'm going to end up going to do the same mistake, because I know, what, he's just going to forgive me. So what about that? What's your advice on that?
Well, the thing is this, see, If a person says that, it means that they still haven't reached a place where they're honest with themselves, right? Tonight, I'm hoping we're talking to people who are honest about their addiction, right? And if, because the thing is this, let's say I've got addiction to something and I see it in my life, right? It has turned into a compulsion. I try to stop it. It doesn't stop. I keep doing it. It's taking a lot of my time. I want to be doing other things, but I can't, right? Well, if a person is seeing this in their life, let's say God forgave you, Hassan, but still you're dealing with this issue, right? You're wasting so many hours of your day doing this thing. Or perhaps if it's attachment to people, you could be having a beautiful relationship with someone without being scared, but because you haven't worked on it, every time they say the smallest thing, you're scared. Oh, what if they leave me, right? Every addiction comes with, or every shortcoming comes with a price. Even if God forgives the sin of it, but that price, we're still paying it, right? So I think if anyone's honest with themselves, if they just look at their life, and that's why I always say, if you want to start fixing something, start with the things that you yourself are convinced are not helping your life, right? So I always ask people, do this. If you want to fix something, like it's the month of Ramadan, instead of, for example, just choosing one random thing, like I want to focus on my Quran, read Quran more, I want to work on my Salah. No. Choose something which is specific to you. So ask yourself, what are 3 things I am doing that I myself believe are not helping my life? Like if I stop them, my life would be better. It could be anything. It could be like waking up late. It could be, for example, eating too much. It could be going to certain websites. It could be anything. It could be a substance. It could be right. Ask yourself that. And then once you admit that to yourself, that this thing is really hurting my life, think about it 3 years from now. If you continue living like this, if you continue waking up, for example, if your issue is with waking up late, 12 o'clock, where would your life be? What have you achieved? Or 3 years from now, if you have fixed this, wake up early, you get so much done. Compare your life if you have fixed the issue and you haven't fixed the issue. And then choose for yourself. Let's say, Hassan, God removes the sins, but you yourself, which life do you want? Right? So if a person is actually honest about their shortcoming, they wouldn't want it to continue. They wouldn't want it to carry on. Right? So these people who say that, oh, God forgives, I don't care, it means that they still haven't seen the damage they're causing to themselves. So we need to speak about that, right?
Another question is that so how can we make Allah our anchor? So how can, I don't know how to explain it, but how can we create that full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can, just through that we can turn away from addictions?
Very beautiful point. What a beautiful, I love the word anchor as well. So the first part of it we've already discussed. We need to change our view of God. And as you mentioned very beautifully, it may be difficult because we've heard so many things. So we need to keep reflecting on this. For example, Munajat Sha'baniyeh, there are certain verses there. Let's keep reread that to get fully convinced here that how loving God is. Then the second step is to add certain practices to our life, right? Masalan, either we can every day before we go to sleep have a 5 minute or even 2 minute, or either we can write it down. I've tried all sorts of things. Sometimes I have a journal or a calendar. Every night I talk to God. I'm like, God, today this is what happened. I had these, I made these mistakes. Help me, please. I don't want to be doing this, right? Help me with this. And this time I actually had the strength. Thank you so much. Please help me, right? This is the whole concept of muraqabah and muhasabah that we have in Islamic spirituality, right?
Correct.
So you spend a few minutes every night trying to check this with God. Another practice is that you can bring, if you feel like you may forget at the end of the night, you can bring this as part of your prayer, right? So in your sajda, because you wouldn't forget, in your sajda, quickly say, God, I made this mistake. You know what? I didn't want to. I'm sorry. Or that time, you just see the urge came. I fought it. Thank you. And also in your qunut, I've always told to people, in your qunut, be creative. Don't always say the same thing. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. It's beautiful, but change it, right? So you can choose something which is relevant to what you're going through. Let me give you a few suggestions. One of them, for example, could be, I just posted this on Instagram today. Allahumma inni ashku ilayka nafsan bis-su'i ammara. Imagine saying this in your qunut. It's a line from Imam Sajjad in Munajat Khamsa Ashar. He's saying, God, I complain to you of a part of me that keeps making me do things I don't want to be doing. Right? How beautiful that is. You admit to God, God, I've got this part of me. It keeps making me do things I don't want to do it. When it comes, it overcomes me, it makes me do something. God, I'm telling you, I don't like this, right? Hope you can read that in your qunut. Imagine what a beautiful reminder that is. You don't want this. There's another prayer by the Prophet. Ilahi, la takilni ila nafsi tarfata aynin abada. God, don't leave me to myself even for a second today. I know that if I'm on my own for 1 second, I'm going to make a mistake. Prophet Yusuf said in the story of Yusuf and Zulaykha, Prophet Yusuf said, if God doesn't help, anyone can make a mistake, right? When he managed to escape the temptation of Zulaykha, he said it was only with God's help. So once we admit that, God, if you don't help me, I'm going to do all sorts of things. So the prayer from the Prophet is this: don't leave me to myself, right? Even for blink of an eye. So these are different ways of every day strengthening our relationship with God. Now, the last tip, this is actually a hadith, which is very beautiful. The hadith says, see, let me give you a story and then I'll mention the hadith. There was this famous technique people would use. When someone's going to the Hajj, you want them to pray for you, right? So what do you usually tell them? Pray for me. Now, probably if a Hajji goes to Hajj, hundreds of people told them to pray for them. So the chances of them forgetting us may be not that high. So some people come up with techniques. They're like when you see the dome of, for example, Prophet's mosque, then pray for me, right? So I've seen people use this technique. And a lot of people have just said, pray for me, but this one has made it specific. As soon as you see the dome of the mosque, pray for me. That beautiful green dome. So the person goes to Hajj in Medina, they suddenly see the green dome, they're like, Ali said, when you see the dome, pray for me. See, out of everyone, they're just going to remember this one. I had a friend who actually told me, when you go to Qom, when I was living in Qom, when you go to the shrine of Lady Ma'soumeh, as soon as you see the flowers, it seems like I'm caught. So sorry, I think I was caught again, right?
No, it's actually all right.
Oh, okay. I'm so glad I didn't say anything then. Didn't expose myself. So he told me, when you go to the shrine of Lady Ma'soumeh, as soon as you see the flowers on top of the shrine, remember me. Believe me, it's been 10 years. I can't get this person out of my head. Anytime I see these flowers, I have to pray for them. Now, the hadith says what? As soon as you get a temptation, remember God. Right? It's a very beautiful technique. Yani it gives you something to remember God at the time when you need him the most. It says, as soon as we feel the temptation. Usually when we feel the temptation, we feel like, oh, let's not think about God. Right? Oh, God's going to I want to do something bad. Let's not. But the hadith says, no. Even if you ended up following the temptation, but as soon as temptation comes, say something to God. Now, it could be, God help me. But it could be, even if you feel like the temptation is so strong, be like, God, I'm doing this, but I wish I didn't. Do it if you can't. Do it. But at least at that point, say, God, I'm doing this, but I wish I didn't. Next time, help me not do it. This practice slowly can really create miracles, right? And it's a hadith. So at the moment of temptation, remember God and ask for help. Be honest. Even if you feel like you can't fight the temptation off, tell that to God. God, this is who I am. Weak. Make me stronger. Right? So these are 3 techniques maybe.
Jazakallah. That was actually an excellent tip. I think I'll use it next time. So there's another, I think, a final question because of the time.
Yeah.
So someone asked, how can a community madrasa help its youth to filter out drug addiction or abuse?
Okay. I think I would say two things are very important, right? One is having very good understanding of what addiction is. Now, I don't know which one of the times I'm getting the circle. Am I caught, or I'll just to be
And no,
safe,
no,
I'm going to
you're
stay a
fine
few
actually.
seconds.
You're fine.
I'm so sorry, by the way. I don't know why is my Wi-Fi doing this today.
No, it's okay. You're actually fine.
Let's get it.
I think Sheikh's connection is a bit lost, but anyway, inshallah, before we end, we'll be hoping for him to answer the question. Let me try see if I can get through him. Yes, I think he's lost his connection. Oh, he's actually back on. Okay, so just a summary of what Sheikh said, and I hope all of you actually were listening, is that he spoke about the forms of addiction, and then he went to what are the different type of addictions people have. It doesn't have to do with drugs or bad addiction. It can be habits within ourselves. And then he spoke about what are the ways. Oh, Sheikh, you're back.
Yes, I so apologize. My
No problem.
my Wi-Fi seems to be avoiding this difficult discussion. It's resorting to other things. So I was just saying something about madrasas, and I'll try to make it
Yes.
quick so that we can finish this before the Wi-Fi gets naughty again. I was saying two things are important for madrasas. One, teachers, volunteers, anyone who's interacting with the kids has to have an understanding of what addiction is, how to overcome it, right? Something just like the discussion we had today. This is like this amount of, okay, so if a person has addiction, we don't feel like they're a bad person. We're like, okay, what problem did they have in their life? Right? So this is their attitude towards addiction. What is it that they were trying to protect themselves with addiction? Let's figure that out, help them. The second thing, which I've seen unfortunately some madrasas lack with this, is that a lot of madrasas still present God in that same old way of God being this judgmental thing, that if you make one mistake, he's going to hate you. If we change that understanding in our madrasas, replace it with an understanding of God as the Ahl Bayt introduced him. In Munajat Shabaniye, in Dua Arafah, in Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq, in so many of our adiyah, and present this to our kids. And I feel like the best religious teaching we can give to any kid is to help them grow with the understanding that they are loved by God. They are important. See, a lot of people who get through addictions, at some point they give up on themselves. They're like, I'm not worth the effort of fixing myself, right? No one cares about them at home or somewhere else, or they haven't felt loved. They haven't felt valued. So, like, what's the point of it, man? Like, I want to destroy my life. So it's very important to in our religious curriculums to make the children know they're very important. Every single person is important for God. The Prophet says, "An-nas kama'adan al-fiddati wa-dhahab." Every soul in this world is like a mine of gold and silver. God wants every single one of these kids and has special love for them. Once they feel loved, once they feel valued, then they will like, okay, I'm worth fixing. You know, Imam Ali says, إلهي لم يكن لي حول فأنتقل به عن معصيتك إلا في وقت أيقظتني لمحبتك. I don't have the strength to fix myself unless when I feel loved. And we know this, my last point. See, if you have a phone that's, for example, very cheap, very terrible phone, it's been 5 years old, and the screen is broken, you're not going to go get that screen fixed because the effort you want to pay into fixing that screen is more than the cost of the phone. if I don't value myself, I'm not going to go through the pain of fixing myself, right? So if you don't let people know they're loved by God, they're valued, they feel like, yeah, what's the point of fixing me? It's difficult, man. But once you tell them, no, you're a special phone, you're like, then you'll be like, okay, I'm an iPhone, the newest iPhone with the screen broken. Fair enough. It's worth paying the extra money to fix the screen, right? So it's very important for madrasas to do these two things: knowledge of what addiction is and making people feel loved by God. Hope, thank you so much for having me, by the way. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Before I end,
Sure.
so actually, as the Aftab subcommittee social vices, they have an initiative that's coming up, and they've called it the VSS, the Virtual Safe Space. And so what they're doing is that they have a panel of scholars, psychologists, medical experts, and so a person can log in as an anonymous person, and they can chat through it. And the main aim is for addiction, to tackle addiction. So they can like select, let's say they Sheikh Jawad, and then they chat, Sheikh Jawad, and then they tell you about all your problems, and then they tell you that, Sheikh, I need your help. How can you help me? So what happens is that Sheikh doesn't know who the person is, and they can have a conversation. The Sheikh can always always catch up on him. Is he okay? Is he progressing? And it's a beautiful initiation that's actually coming up soon.
That's perfect. You just made my day. That's the best news you could have given me. I'm so glad to hear about that, and would love to learn more about it, because I think that's a model that every community needs to have. It's amazing.
Yeah. So inshallah, Jazakallah, thank you so much. I'd like to thank Africa Federation, the AYN team, and Aftab for holding this. Thank you so much, Sheikh, for giving us your precious time. Thank you so much, Jazakallah. And inshallah, we're hoping to see you soon again in future session, inshallah.
It's my pleasure. Thanks to you and the lovely people who organized it, the lovely people who watched. It was my honor. Inshallah, be in God's care.
Inshallah. Jazakallah, Sheikh.
Ma salama. Ma salama.